HBO's upcoming Harry Potter TV series is moving full steam ahead, and they've finally confirmed the adult cast for some of the most iconic roles from the wizarding world. This isn't speculation anymore. We now know who's playing Dumbledore, Snape, Hagrid, McGonagall, Quirrell, and Filch. It's official. Today, we're breaking down each casting choice in detail. Subscribe if you're following this reboot closely, and let's get into it. John Lithgow as Albus Dumbledore. One of the biggest casting headlines is that Emmy and Tony Award winner John Lithgow will be playing Albus Dumbledore. Lithgow's career spans decades, with major roles in The Crown, Dexter, Terms of Endearment, and Third Rock from the Sun. He's known for playing both authoritative and deeply human characters, qualities that align well with the complex role of Dumbledore. Lithgow himself acknowledged the weight of the role in a recent interview, stating, "It was not an easy decision because it's going to define me for the last chapter of my life, I'm afraid. But I'm very excited. Some wonderful people are turning their attention back to Harry Potter. I'll be about 87 years old at the wrap party, but I've said yes." He's stepping into a role previously portrayed by Richard Harris and later by Michael Gambon, both of whom brought very different tones to the character. Harris's Dumbledore was serene and grandfatherly, while Gambon's was more forceful and unpredictable. Lithgow brings a theatrical sensibility and emotional depth that could lean closer to Harris's approach, while also tapping into the strategic and morally ambiguous side of Dumbledore. Janet McTeer as Minerva McGonagall. Janet McTeer has been cast as Professor Minerva McGonagall, the Hogwarts deputy headmistress and transfiguration professor. McTeer is a critically acclaimed stage and screen actor with a Tony Award, a Golden Globe, and 2 Academy Award nominations to her name. You may know her from Ozark, where she played cartel lawyer Helen Pierce, or from Albert Nobbs, which earned her an Oscar nomination. In the original film series, McGonagall was portrayed with elegance and quiet authority by Dame Maggie Smith. McTeer is more than capable of holding that same gravitas. What makes her especially promising in this role is her ability to play women of high intellect and moral clarity, often with a streak of emotional vulnerability just beneath the surface. Given the series will have more time to explore the characters in detail, McTeer could show us more of McGonagall's early relationship with Dumbledore and her dedication to the school beyond just the stern exterior we saw in the films. Paapa Essiedu as Severus Snape. Casting Paapa Essiedu as Severus Snape is one of the boldest and most discussed moves so far. Essiedu is best known for his performances in I May Destroy You, The Lazarus Project, and Black Mirror. He's also a highly respected stage actor, having trained with the Royal Shakespeare Company. This marks a significant departure from the character as previously portrayed by Alan Rickman, whose icy delivery and understated emotional power became synonymous with Snape. Director Mark Mylod acknowledged this challenge directly, stating, "Nobody can replace Alan Rickman, but we can find the next Alan Rickman." Essiedu brings a different kind of energy, more raw, more intense, and perhaps even more relatable. His casting also signals a clear interest from the creative team in reinterpreting Snape through a modern lens, without losing the essential traits that make him who he is: bitterness, brilliance, and a deeply buried sense of loyalty and love. With more screen time and longer arcs per book, this series has the opportunity to dive deeper into Snape's backstory, something that could benefit enormously from Essiedu's emotional range. Nick Frost as Rubeus Hagrid. Nick Frost has been cast as Rubeus Hagrid, Hogwarts half-giant gamekeeper and the man who first introduces Harry to the wizarding world. Frost is widely known for his work in British comedies, particularly in the films Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and The World's End, all part of the Cornetto trilogy directed by Edgar Wright. Frost's casting is one of the more unconventional choices, especially considering the legacy of Robbie Coltrane, who played Hagrid in the original films with warmth, innocence, and quiet melancholy. Frost brings a more comedic and chaotic edge, but also has experience with dramatic roles and emotional depth, including his work in Fighting with My Family and Into the Badlands. What's promising here is Frost's natural likability and physical presence. Hagrid is more than comic relief. He's a tragic figure, someone who never fully fits into either the magical or non-magical world. If Frost leans into the character's outsider status while maintaining that signature warmth, he could bring a very human portrayal of the half-giant that's both familiar and new. Luke Thalon as Professor Quirinus Quirrell. Luke Thalon has been cast as Professor Quirrell, who teaches defense against the dark arts during Harry's first year at Hogwarts. In the original film, Quirrell was portrayed by Ian Hart as a timid, nervous man with a secret alliance with Voldemort, quite literally. Thalon is a stage actor best known for his work in Tom Stoppard's Leopoldstadt, a critically acclaimed play that showcased his ability to handle emotionally layered material with intelligence and precision. While he's relatively unknown to mainstream audiences, this could work in his favor. Quirrell's arc relies on an initial sense of anonymity and weakness, which slowly gives way to something much more sinister. If the show expands on the events of the Philosopher's Stone and adds more dimension to Quirrell's descent into servitude under Voldemort, Thalon could have a memorable character arc early in the series. Paul Whitehouse as Argus Filch. Finally, we have Paul Whitehouse taking on the role of Argus Filch, the caretaker of Hogwarts. He's the one constantly complaining about students tracking dirt through the corridors, or misbehaving in ways that violate the many school rules he obsessively enforces. Whitehouse is a veteran of British comedy, best known for the fast show Harry and Paul and The Death of Stalin. Interestingly, he's no stranger to the Harry Potter universe. He played the portrait of Sir Cadogan in Prisoner of Azkaban, though that scene was ultimately cut from the theatrical release. Taking over from David Bradley, who played Filch in the films with a perfect mix of fury and pathetic energy, Whitehouse will likely bring a slightly more comic slant to the role. Still, Filch is a surprisingly complex character. A squib working at a school that constantly reminds him of his magical inadequacy, he's bitter for a reason. If the series gives Whitehouse room to explore that, it could make for one of the more underrated performances. Casting whispers and what-ifs. Before we jump into the next few names, it's worth noting that nothing here is set in stone. These are circulating casting possibilities. Some whispered in industry corners, some bubbling up from fan conversations, and some hovering somewhere in between. They haven't been confirmed by HBO, but they're compelling enough to be worth unpacking. Olivia Colman as Dolores Umbridge. Few characters in the Harry Potter universe provoke as strong a reaction as Dolores Umbridge, the kind of villain who doesn't need dark magic to feel truly terrifying. And one particular name being floated in connection with the role is Olivia Colman. It makes immediate sense. Colman's talent lies in her ability to pivot effortlessly between warmth and malice. Whether in The Favorite, Fleabag, or The Crown, she's shown how she can embody restraint, cruelty, charm, and volatility without ever raising her voice. That's precisely what makes Umbridge so unsettling. Her control, her artificial calm, her ability to destroy with a smile. This isn't the kind of antagonist who shouts or casts deadly spells. Umbridge is a functionary of power, an enforcer of control through rules, appearances, and a condescending voice. She doesn't just inflict pain, she believes it's for your own good. Colman could bring that to the screen in a way that feels eerily plausible. It's also worth noting the poetic overlap. Colman would be following Imelda Staunton once again, just as she did in The Crown. If this particular piece of speculation becomes reality, it could result in one of the most quietly terrifying performances of the entire series. Ben Barnes as Sirius Black. There's one name that's been linked to Sirius Black for years, through fan art, wish lists, and casting debates, and that's Ben Barnes. It's easy to see why. Barnes has the right look for the role: dark, rugged, intense. But more importantly, he has the emotional vocabulary to play a character like Sirius, who's equal parts haunted and charismatic. His performances in Shadow and Bone and The Punisher showed exactly that duality. Someone carrying the weight of his past while still managing to be captivating in the present. Sirius is not a standard mentor figure. He's damaged, volatile, sometimes reckless. but also fiercely loyal. He doesn't offer wisdom in neat, digestible packages. He's still stuck, emotionally, somewhere between the trauma of Azkaban and the grief of losing his closest friends. Barnes could give that complexity the room it needs. If this casting does materialize, it could tap into something that wasn't fully explored in the original films. The emotional chaos beneath Sirius's cool exterior, the pain behind his charm, and the loneliness that shaped his life. Peter Capaldi as Garrick Ollivander. One name making the rounds for Garrick Ollivander, the enigmatic wandmaker, is Peter Capaldi. A choice that, if true, feels immediately right. Capaldi's voice alone carries weight. He can make a line feel prophetic, eerie, or oddly tender depending on how he chooses to deliver it. That kind of presence is exactly what the role calls for. Ollivander isn't a major character in terms of screen time, but every moment he appears is loaded with atmosphere. He's a man who treats wands as sentient, almost sacred objects. Part artisan, part prophet, part scholar. In the original films, John Hurt played Ollivander as a mysterious figure, someone who seems to know more than he's letting on. Capaldi could carry that tradition forward, perhaps even take it further, adding a slightly more unpredictable or otherworldly energy to the character. He's someone who should unsettle you a little, even when he's being helpful. If the series spends more time in places like Ollivander's, exploring the deeper lore behind wand lore and magical tradition, Capaldi would be well suited to anchor those moments. Phoebe Waller-Bridge as Aunt Petunia. One of the more unexpected casting conversations centers around Aunt Petunia and the possibility of Phoebe Waller-Bridge stepping into the role. At first glance, this might seem like an unusual fit. Waller-Bridge is best known for her sharp comedic writing and fourth wall-breaking performances in Fleabag, as well as her work on Killing Eve. But when you look deeper into Petunia's character, it starts to make more sense. Petunia isn't just Harry's bitter aunt. She's someone who grew up in the shadow of magic, resented it, and lost her sister to it, emotionally and physically. Her cruelty is rooted in rejection and shame. Most portrayals so far have emphasized her meanness, but there's potential for something more layered, something that hints at what was lost, not just what was inflicted. Waller-Bridge has the capacity to play wounded characters who mask their pain with rigidity and sarcasm. If the show takes the opportunity to deepen Petunia's emotional arc, especially in earlier flashbacks or private moments, this could be one of the most nuanced supporting roles in the entire series. It would be a surprising choice. But sometimes the best casting decisions are the ones no one sees coming. Final thoughts. So that's the confirmed adult cast so far. With actors like Lithgow, McTeer, and Essiedu on board, HBO is clearly aiming high in terms of performance and character depth. Each casting choice feels deliberate, with room to reinterpret without disrespecting what came before. Casting for Harry, Ron, Hermione, and the other students is still underway. Over 30,000 children submitted auditions last year, and filming is scheduled to begin this summer. Until then, this cast gives us plenty to think about. Let me know in the comments which casting choice you're most curious or cautious about. And if you want to stay up to date as more news drops, make sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching.